Hi, I don't have a job. I don't have an alarm clock. And I don't have any money problems. But you have all three. Show them why.
Once, there was a country where a thief stole a suitcase stuffed with cash. And then he dumped every last bill onto the sidewalk and walked away with an empty suitcase. He wasn't crazy. He was smart. The empty suitcase was worth more than everything inside it. Hold on to that picture, because the same thing, only slower, quieter, and more polite, is happening right now to the money you're so proud of. You did everything right. You didn't waste it. You saved it. And that might be exactly why you're not getting any richer. I'll tell you about that country in a few minutes. The story gets ugly. But first, one number. One number that should genuinely scare you. The dollar you're setting aside is melting right there in your hands. Since 1913, the American dollar has lost more than 96% of its value. 96%! No robbery, no gunshot, quietly. A dollar from back then buys you about 3 cents today. And to buy what a single dollar bought back then, you now need around $33. 33. And this isn't some abstract textbook theory. It's the exact same dollar sitting in your own wallet right now. Nobody reached into your pocket. The number printed on the bill never changed. The only thing that changed is what it can buy. A loaf of bread once cost a few cents. Today, that same loaf costs a few dollars. The bread didn't get better. The dollar just got weaker. This quiet little leak has a boring name: inflation. Picture a tiny hole in a bucket, 1 drop a day. You don't notice. Come back in 10 years, and half the water is already gone. It's like a silent tax nobody voted for, and nobody sends you a bill for. It just gets deducted every single year from every dollar that sits around doing nothing. For over a century, prices in America rose by about 3% a year on average. 3% sounds like nothing, but this is exactly where it gets interesting. 3% is a trap that snaps shut in slow motion. At 3% a year, prices double roughly every 24 years. They double, twice as expensive. Here's what that actually means. A guy hides $100 in a jar at age 20 and buries it in his closet. He digs it back up at 44, and that same $100 now buys him half as much. Half. He didn't spend a cent. He guarded it. He protected it, and it shrank anyway, by half. And now the cruelest part, the savings account, the safe place everyone brings their money to. Historically, it pays you almost nothing, so your money stands perfectly still, while the prices of the entire world quietly walk away without it. Standing still feels safe. It is not. Standing still is the one thing that is guaranteed to lose. Even our Sloth, who doesn't move because of his personality, still beats a dollar that doesn't move because it's safe. And here's the sneakiest part of all. For your money to lose weight, you don't have to do anything at all. You just leave it alone, and time does all the work for you. Now imagine what happens if you take that exact same mechanic and crank it all the way to the extreme. Not in theory, this actually happened. In a real country, to real people. Germany, 1923. Remember that thief with the suitcase from the very beginning? This is the country he lived in. And this is how money behaved there. One student ordered a cup of coffee for 5,000 marks. By the time he had slowly finished it, the second cup he ordered already cost 7,000. The coffee got more expensive right there at the table. faster than he could drink the first one. People carried their paychecks home not in a wallet, but in a wheelbarrow. An ordinary garden wheelbarrow piled to the top with cash. Children were handed stacks of banknotes instead of building blocks to build little towers on the floor. And heating your stove by burning the money was cheaper than buying firewood with it. That's why that thief poured the money out onto the street and took the empty suitcase. The suitcase was still worth something, and the paper inside was almost worth nothing. Funny, right? Except this is where it stops being funny. From here on, it stops being funny completely, because that money belonged to real people. These were elderly people who had honestly saved their entire lives, and in a single year, they discovered that all of their life savings couldn't buy a newspaper. Teachers, widows, ordinary families, the people who did everything right and safe. Nobody robbed their savings out in the open. Their savings were just zeroed out. Quietly, politely, with a single number on a piece of paper. An entire class of people who carefully guarded their money woke up one day with nothing. Not because they made a mistake or spent too much, but because they trusted a piece of paper that was quietly losing weight every single day. Germany is that same exact story, just at maximum speed. At your house, it runs at minimum speed, but the mechanic is identical, and it comes down to one simple split. Picture two buckets. In the first one, money just sits, quietly, neatly, motionless. And every year, inflation quietly sips out of it. In the second bucket, money is doing something, working, moving, taking part in the economy. From the outside, both buckets look almost the same. The only difference is that one of them has a hole in it and the other one doesn't. And this is where the numbers honestly split apart. History shows that money placed into a broad basket of the biggest American companies grew, on average, by about 10% a year, and after you subtract inflation, around 7%. This is not advice, and it is not a nudge to go do anything. It's just the arithmetic of the past, a fact from a textbook. To feel the difference for real, remember that guy who buried $100 in his closet? Take that exact same $100 that started working inside a basket like that almost a century ago would have grown into millions. And that same $100 sitting in a drawer the entire time would buy you many times less today than it did back then. The same 100, two completely different endings. The only difference is whether that money slept or worked. And it's not about where exactly you put your money, it's about the split itself. There is money that sleeps, and there is money that doesn't. The first bucket shrinks, guaranteed, every single year. The second one has historically grown, and most people spend their whole lives carefully, diligently filling up that first bucket, and proudly call it saving. And almost nobody ever once stops to ask themselves, which of the two buckets have I been dripping into this whole time? But here's what matters, and here's where almost everybody gets me wrong. This does not mean that saving is bad, and it does not mean that cash is the enemy. A little bit of money you can reach in under a minute, that's peace of mind. That's a cushion for when life hits you out of nowhere. The car breaks down, you lose your job. Here's the real difference. Money that sits for a week or a month, that's a cushion. That's normal and smart. But money that sits for 30 years without moving, that's a slow leak. The mistake was never that you save. The mistake is that the word saved got turned into a finish line. Like you dragged your money over to the jar, closed the lid, and that's it. You won. You can relax now. But the jar is not the finish line. For money that just sits there for decades, the jar is a waiting room where the lights are quietly switched off, one by one. And so the right question isn't, how much did you set aside? The right question is, what was your money actually doing all that time? Working for you or sleeping? And here it is, the sloth philosophy, the one this entire channel exists for. In nature, it is not the fastest who survive, and it is not the strongest. It's the calmest who survive, the ones who don't panic, don't scramble, don't run around in circles, but calmly understand the rules and patiently wait for their moment. With money, it is exactly the same. You don't need to wake up at 5 in the morning. You don't need to juggle 10 side hustles at once. You don't need to chase anything or run yourself into the ground. You just need to understand one simple thing. Money that just sits quietly melts, and money that doesn't sleep works for you while you sleep up on your branch. What exactly you choose to do with that is entirely up to you. My job is to slowly, lazily show you how the trick works. Your job is to decide, stay in the waiting room, or finally turn the lights back on. If this was useful, subscribe to the Sloth. It's the single best thing you can do without ever getting off the couch. Next time, we'll break down why your second side hustle might be making you poorer instead of richer, and how plain exhaustion cleverly disguises itself as progress. Until then, don't let your money sleep deeper than you do. See you on the branch.